Berlin has just executed a maneuver that few thought possible. After years of hesitancy, quiet diplomacy, and moral lectures about restraint, Germany has crossed a red line, one that even Kyiv never believed it would. What happens when Europe's most cautious power stops watching and starts acting? The answer arrived in October 2025 when Germany unleashed a defense package worth over €2 billion, a seismic move that redefined the war's balance. The package wasn't just large, it was transformational. Advanced Patriot and Iris-T air defense systems, precision long-range drones, guided artillery, and joint weapons manufacturing all flowed eastward. The old hesitation evaporated overnight. Kyiv was stunned. NATO partners were blindsided. Moscow erupted in fury. Washington, meanwhile, saw a message written in steel. Germany no longer asked for permission. Gone were the days of slow deliberation, when every decision to send a tank or a shell was weighed with existential caution. This was escalation in its purest strategic form, not chaos, but calculated defiance. Berlin had just detonated a political bomb disguised as cooperation. What began as support had evolved into a declaration of independence, a test of how far Germany could go before either Washington or Moscow pushed back. The same government that once balked at sending helmets was now constructing weapons factories inside Ukraine. It was as though decades of post-war restraint had vanished overnight. The Zeitenwende, the turning point, long promised by German leaders, was no longer rhetoric, it had materialized in real time. That October package was more than numbers on paper. The €2 billion flood of hardware reshaped Ukraine's defense grid, cutting-edge air systems, radar networks, and precision rocket platforms fortified its skies. With Patriots and Iris-Ts, Ukrainian airspace transformed into a layered shield, capable of intercepting cruise missiles, drones, and even hypersonic threats. For the first time since the invasion, Kyiv could breathe, its skies were finally defendable. But Berlin didn't stop there. A €400 million allocation toward drone production brought offense to the table. The result was breathtaking. AI-enhanced Antonov 196 strike drones capable of penetrating deep into Russian command zones, destroying supply hubs and logistics nodes across the border. Each batch carried a clear message, and Moscow heard it loud and clear. This was just one strand of a much larger web. Germany now contributes €9 billion annually in military aid, making it Ukraine's largest European supporter and the world's second-largest donor after the United States. In October alone, Berlin injected $500 million into NATO's priority Ukraine requirements list, Pearl, ensuring American-made weapons reach Kyiv faster. The inclusion of Estonia, Finland, Lithuania, and Sweden accelerated the process, sealing the northern flank into a unified front. The effect was immediate. Russian missile raids that once pummeled Ukrainian infrastructure began to lose their edge. Multi-layered interception systems turned the air war into a losing gamble for Moscow. Ukrainian commanders, now shielded from above, could plan counteroffensives with newfound confidence. Then came the real shockwave, the industrial revolution behind the weapons. In May 2025, Chancellor Friedrich Merz and President Zelensky signed an agreement that forever altered the European defense map: joint production of long-range missiles, drones, and cruise systems across both German and Ukrainian territories. It wasn't just aid, it was co-manufacturing, a fusion of economies and defense ecosystems. The first Ukrainian-built, German-funded systems entered active duty by July, their production scaling into triple digits by year's end. The Antonov 196 drones, now built under this partnership, extended Kyiv's strike reach hundreds of kilometers beyond the front, deep into Russian airfields and supply lines. German firms led the charge. Rheinmetall ramped up artillery shell output and delivered Leopard tanks, Marder IFVs, and Skynex defense platforms. Helling committed 10,000 AI-powered attack drones, forming autonomous swarms capable of overwhelming Russian jammers. Quantum Systems localized drone production in Ukraine, employing 80 specialists to produce 1,000 advanced reconnaissance drones annually. This wasn't aid anymore, it was a defense economy born on the battlefield. Maintenance, repair, and adaptation were all localized. Ukraine gained autonomy, Germany gained live battlefield feedback, the kind of real-time military data only global superpowers once had. Then came the statement that broke a 75-year taboo. On May 26, 2025, during the WDR Europa Forum, Merz declared, "There are no longer any range restrictions on weapons delivered to Ukraine, not by the British, the French, the Americans, or us. And very force to is then." That line rippled through Europe like an earthquake. For the first time, Western-supplied weapons could legally strike deep into Russian territory. Ukraine was now free to attack strategic infrastructure across the border using German-funded systems. Overnight, the war's geography changed. The Kremlin condemned the move as a dangerous escalation and a direct threat to peace talks. NATO allies quietly panicked. Berlin's defiance created tension among European capitals, torn between admiration and fear. Each missile now carried not only explosive power, but political gravity. Germany's approach took on deliberate strategic ambiguity. The Taurus missile, capable of hitting targets up to 500 kilometers away, became the centerpiece of this doctrine. Merz's government neither confirmed nor denied its transfer to Ukraine. Deliveries occurred in silence, cloaked in secrecy. For Moscow, it was a nightmare, an invisible threat it couldn't predict or preempt. With this, Germany's post-war identity cracked open. The taboo that had defined its foreign policy for generations had fallen. The Zeitenwende was no longer a speech, it was a battlefield reality. Germany's defense commitments were staggering. Over the next 5 years, Berlin will allocate €649 billion, pushing defense spending to 3.5% of GDP by 2029. Included in that is a fixed €9 billion per year earmarked for Ukraine, a long-term anchor that cements Berlin as Kyiv's ultimate European guarantor. But ambition meets resistance. Domestic disputes erupt over funding. The Finance Ministry's approval of €18 billion for 2026-2027 fell short of the Defense Ministry's €6 billion request. Eyes have now turned to frozen Russian assets, long a controversial subject, as potential financing sources. Berlin's industrial drive backs up its promises. At the heart of it lies Rheinmetall's mammoth plant, spanning the area of 5 football fields. By late 2024, it delivered 25,000 artillery shells to Ukraine, with production set to hit 350,000 annually by 2027. Europe produces around 2 million shells per year, half of them from Germany compared to Russia's 4 or 5 million. The race to rearm Europe is now fully industrialized. Rheinmetall also opened a joint venture inside Ukraine, with 51% German ownership, producing 6-digit quantities of shells yearly. Logistics are now local, supply chains faster, and weapons deployment immediate. Tanks, IFVs, and anti-air systems roll off the same lines that once stood silent during Germany's pacifist decades. Berlin is no longer donating, it's building a war economy. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, another shock landed. In July 2025, US President Donald Trump announced that America would continue manufacturing arms for Ukraine, but Europe would pay 100% of the cost. It was bold, transactional, and entirely Trumpian. Washington would produce, Europe would fund. Germany didn't hesitate. Merz embraced the plan instantly. The US provides weapons at scale. Europe finances them. It's in our interest, and it helps Ukraine defend against Russia's terror. NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte confirmed the deal. Europe would pay. But behind the diplomacy, the shift was clear. Germany now controlled Europe's defense purse strings. The flow of arms into Ukraine effectively ran through Berlin, giving it a new kind of power, moral, logistical, and financial dominance. For the first time since 1945, Europe's defense command center wasn't in Washington, it was in Berlin. Germany's support didn't stop at weapons. In late 2025, it launched a €60 million winter defense initiative to rebuild Ukraine's shattered energy grid. Over 32,000 units of transformers, generators, and substations were delivered, while Siemens, RWE, and E on rebuilt power plants and gas infrastructure. Missiles defended Ukraine's skies, but German energy tech defended its survival. The human results were visible. Hospitals stayed lit, homes stayed warm, industries resumed. Yet the political signal was even brighter. Germany wasn't just an ally, it was becoming Europe's strategic core. By winter's end, the unspoken truth was clear. Germany had replaced America as Europe's military engine. With US engagement shrinking and Europe's stockpiles thin, Berlin stepped into the vacuum. It managed funds, coordinated production, and turned policy into power. Still, such leadership brings heavy consequences. Germany's decisions now carry the full weight of European security and the shadow of its own history. The Taurus missile, cloaked in ambiguity, symbolizes this transformation, from sending helmets in 2022 to leading Europe's rearmament by 2025. Hesitation has given way to strategy. Caution has evolved into command. What began as reluctant support has become full-fledged leadership. For Ukraine, the shock wasn't fear, it was awe. The €2 billion package, the drone factories, the range-lifting decree, all of it spoke louder than any speech. Germany had transformed overnight from hesitant donor to indispensable architect of European defense. The ripple effects are only beginning. Germany's actions have redrawn the continent's security architecture, NATO debates, Brussels deliberates, but Berlin acts. The question now isn't whether Germany will lead. It's whether Europe is ready to follow.